Hey guys, and welcome back to Art Theory, the channel serving up theories and delicious booble gems. They've got that crunch. Today we'll be discussing the colossal fossils found in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, specifically the awe-inspiring Hebra skeleton. Nestled within the frosty tunnel of the Great Skeleton Cave on the North Hebra summit, these gigantic remains have been a source of speculation since 2017. However, the intrigue deepens with the latest revelations from Tears of the Kingdom, adding another layer of mystery. Who is this massive creature? Are they a deity, dragon, or enemy? What did they look like? And how did they meet their untimely end? Grab your palettes and switches, theorists, because I'm about to answer all of your questions. Please consider subscribing and supporting me through my Etsy store, where I frequently update it with all your adventurer needs. Now, let's get into this. You likely first encountered the Hebra skeleton in Breath of the Wild from the side quest Leviathan bones that you get from an up-and-coming paleontologist Akra. You are tasked with capturing photographs of the three enormous bones all across Hyrule. You visit these landmarks in Tears of the Kingdom with the guidance of Lune, who has traded in her unhealthy obsession with Guardian technology from Breath of the Wild for another unhealthy obsession with large lifeless carcasses. This fangirl encourages Link to visit Eldin, Hebra, and the desert in order to repair these skeletons with Ultra Hand. In doing so, we patiently defrost Like I said, we patiently and delicately defrost the fragmented body parts in order to restore the Hebra skeleton to its former glory. Regrettably, while Tears of the Kingdom brought a new layer of complexity to these Leviathans, we never got to see them in the prime of their life, like with Lanayru under the influence of the Time Shift Stone in Skyward Sword. So, what would these magnificent massive beasts look like back in their heyday? Well, in order to answer that, we must first dissect and analyze the remnants they left behind. It's important to note that these skeletal remains are incomplete at best, so in order to create the most accurate representation for our final drawing, we must first restore its foundation. The first change we need to make is the length of the spine. Considering the prevalent use of the term Leviathan for large aquatic creatures, we know that this specimen is likely rooted in the whale family. In Tears of the Kingdom, we can count 14 remarkably intact vertebrae, before the rest of the body disappears into the water and rubble of the cave. Since whales normally boast about 37 to 81 vertebrae and the spine seems to continue further, this gigantic creature will need to be over double the size. Enter the matter of the mandible, where the jaw reveals a gap that seems to defy the organic order. It's worth noting that in nature, jaw bones don't typically sport such a conspicuous divide. This leads me to believe that the lower jaw expands much further than we see here. Taking a look at this underbelly picture, if we extend each side to converge more naturally in the middle, we get a more plausible jawline bone for this aquatic being. With our skeletal remains reimagined and rebuilt, we can move on to adding all of the blubber, color, and lore. But first, a quick announcement. Can you tell I'm not a natural on camera yet? Hey guys, announcing my official Patreon launch. If you are able to become a member, you can expect a shout out upon joining, downloads of all my images from my videos, as well as discounts to my Etsy store. If you're able to give your support, it would be incredibly appreciated. Back to the video. Based on our pile of bones here, we can start to speculate on the species of this giant. Short answer is, they're definitely a whale, due to the Leviathan title mentioned earlier, massive size and general appearance. The long answer, though, gets a little more complicated. These whale bones don't match up to any one whale exactly, so we'll need to break them down. The Hebra fossil in particular has a very interesting skull with its long divided rostrum and extended and pointy Potatoes, can you help me out here?
It's pronounced supra-occipital.
Yeah, this is why you don't major in art in college. Potatoes, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Potatoes, an anthropologist who specializes in skeletal remains.
Please take it away. I can't pronounce half of these words.
Gladly, the top of the Leviathan skull seems to include the premaxilla, frontal, and what might be described as the supra-occipital crest. Or you could call the spike at the very top the occipital crest to keep it simple. The supraoccipital is part of the cranium, and in this case is extremely elongated and enlarged. This could suggest a strong lower jaw. The Leviathan skull is reminiscent of certain mammals with a powerful bite, such as apes, with a similarly enlarged crest on their skulls. So your original hypothesis of an enlarged lower mandible is spot on.
So what you're saying is, I'm super duper smart? Can't win 'em all. Thanks, potatoes!
See ya!
With all of that said, and several Google searches later, we can narrow down the physical traits of our blubbery buddy. The skull seems to resemble a humpback whale, with its long divided rostrum and wide lower jaw. The humpback whale's natural shape fits our emphasis on a strong lower bite, but since our supraoccipital crest is even longer than a normal humpback, we'll elongate it even further. Protrusions in the skull tend to be where whale blubber accumulates and adds bulk to these sea giants. So we'll also add mass around the peak of the skull, resulting in a natural rounded ramp up from the blowhole reaching back into its body. Of all the Leviathan remains in Tears of the Kingdom, the Heber skeleton has the most unique scapula, or shoulder blade. It extends much further back than the other two Leviathan fossils and is distinctive in shape. Of the whale family, the skeleton that best matches is the sperm whale. So we'll add in the small spatula-shaped flippers from the sperm whale and low hump of the dorsal fin, lumpy body, and tail. Now that our silhouette is established, we can move on to the gender. Loon even questions the gender while gushing over what this creature could have been like alive. This interesting dialogue felt out of the blue, unnecessary for design really, since the sex of whales are very hard to distinguish physically. But since the game itself questions it, so will we. This Leviathan is likely male, due to its strong, sharp jawline and narrow, deep eye sockets, where, by the way, you can pick up a Korok seed in each eye. Now, what about the appearance outside of the basic body shape and sex? We'll add a few details from the humpback whale, the ventral grooves running down its neck, as well as tubercles, which are the small gulf-sized bone growths found all over their faces. We'll also add a bumpy and wrinkly skin texture commonly found on the bodies of sperm whales. In order to add a little Zelda spice, we'll make this more than a whale mutant. We'll also add in hair. I wanted to emulate some of the facial hair of Leviathan, the flying whale deity from Skyward Sword. This iteration of Hyrule loves giving its rare and majestic beings long white locks, so we'll continue to this tradition in our drawing as well. I gave them long, hair-like eyebrows intended to portray wisdom and age. There are more details we need to add, but in order to do that, we must first look into the possible origins and lore behind this beast. There's a popular Reddit theory by a user, Mr. Makaka, who speculated that these three artifacts were the infamous Leviathan, Windfish, and Ocean King. Leviathan is certainly hard to deny, but the Ocean King from Phantom Hourglass and the Windfish from Link's Awakening don't really match up to our discoveries laid out here. But there is another giant sea creature that matches our design almost perfectly. Lord Jabu Jabu from Ocarina of Time. This Zora deity has many confused, but he is in fact a whale. He lacks gills breathing from the air on the surface for extended amounts of times. As large aquatic animal who breathes oxygen, he is most similar to a whale. This also fits with the location of our bones. In Breath of the Wild, these Leviathan remains are the only ones not found in the open air, but instead encased in ice, buried in a watery cave protected by ancient doors. The motif of being frozen isn't a concept new to the Zora, so what better way to represent their long-lost deity? The head shape lines up directly to our drawing, as well as the small fins and rough texture of the back. But even then, Lord Jabu Jabu isn't a perfect match. Fortunately for our theory, Lord Jabu Jabu had descendants, who we meet in the form of Jaboon in Wind Waker. Knowing that Jabu was able to reproduce or reincarnate into a new physical form gives me solace that this isn't the Zora deity, but rather a similar related carcass from a time long gone. This would explain why, although similar, their bodies don't match exactly. So with Lord Jabu Jabu and Jaboon hereditary traits taken into consideration, we'll add in the blue-green skin coloring, a combination of their eye colors, in a pattern meant to be reminiscent of the dragons, and their very plump blue fish lips. With our design set in stone, there's only one question left to answer. What happened to this magnificent creature? In Breath of the Wild, Anya, one of the scientists debating the cause of the Leviathan extinction, offers up the possibility of an ice age. It's plausible that the Akala seawater once flowed into the giant canyon north of Hyrule. As Hyrule was once flooded to the point that only the tallest peaks were visible, Hebra Summit would have once been an island. There could have been an underwater cavern that led to this cave on the side of the mountain, that this Leviathan escaped to as temperatures began to decline. As Jaboon and Lord Jabu Jabu are both waterlocked creatures, unlike some of the other whales who can fly in the series, this would have been their only reprieve. The other element to consider here is how you find this Leviathan in Breath of the Wild. In order to access this skeleton as well as the Takomo Shrine, the player must solve a terrain obstacle in order to roll a large snowball down a hill, destroying the large pale stone zonai doors blocking your path. This is a very similar way to how you find Jaboon in Wind Waker. In Wind Waker, Link is given the task of finding the water spirit. Jaboon, who normally resides at the Great Fish Isle, fled his home to a cave under Outset after sensing Ganondorf's intention to harm him. The cave is only accessed when you navigate the terrain obstacle of the whirlpool, shooting your cannon to knock down the pale stone swirl pattern door. Sounds familiar. It's entirely likely that this descendant had a similar fight or flight instinct like Jaboon and fled to this cave. This is where the water spirit would have been found by that era's version of Ganondorf or left in isolation to freeze. I wanted this interpretation of the Hebra Leviathan to feel real within the Tears of the Kingdom universe, so I also generated items you would be able to shoot off of their body, much like you do with the dragon's horns, scales, and teeth. For this Leviathan, I made tubercles that could serve as a strong blunt weapon fuse, and a piece of whale fin that could help you shoot deep into water, feeding into my impossible dreams of underwater exploration DLC. So that's my design and theory behind the Hebra Colossal fossil. What would you guys name this descendant of Jaboon and Lord Jabu Jabu? Let me know in the comments down below. Big thanks to our resident anthropologist, Potatoes, for all of her help on this video and for all of your support. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I'll see you next time.